All right. So, how I grew 4 businesses past 7 figures and counting. Now, before I dive in into the process of how I've done this in the past couple years, I do want to make sure that I just not only show you screenshots, but I actually just show you a live overview of some of the accounts, mainly because I want to make sure that there's more validity in this process as well. So you can understand how this process could work for you depending on where you're at. Right. So, just for purposes in regards to privacy, not all the businesses wanted to share it. And some of the businesses are still in the growth processes. Some of them are already past the 7 figure uh, point as well. So here's one of the businesses. I am shooting this just post July 4th, just an FYI. So one of the businesses is around the 180K as of last month, right? So this was literally last month. Another one that is growing as well is around, I believe it's around the 70K per month mark, right? If I were to collected a couple piffs today, so we're off to a strong start, right? 70K. We added some teams, some people into our team, and we obviously increased a lot through that. This is probably going to hit 100K this month, and I'll show you an update of what that looks like. Another steady business where we're scaling a little bit more with team as well. Just bear with me as I do this. Is around, I believe, around that 200K ish mark, right? So we're still making sure that we're creating some leadership positions to really scale in this process, right? And again, I'm not showing all of them just because some of them, just for privacy reasons, didn't want to, which is all good. I'm not going to make sure that I run into that process for them. All right, so let's dive in. Right? Why this video? Why is this something that I want to share? Well, just to be frank, I do believe there's a lot of problems going on in this industry right now, specifically when it comes to this online space, focus on education, so on and so forth. First things first, I just want to let you know that all I'm doing in this video is just to share what I've learned in my journey, and also to let you know that I am still a student of learning as well. I don't know it all. Anything that I share will only be the things that I know. Only the things and experiences that I have seen, and that is the things that I am the most confident in, and the things that I can have validity and authority to say, hey, this worked for these businesses at this level and this scale. It probably could work for you if you do the same thing or something that is near like it as well. Right. So here's kind of the issues, just to be frank, of what's going on. Honestly, everybody in the space when it comes to B2B, so a business trying to help another business to grow, is just selling another 5 to 10K offer with this incredible offer where you get a money back guarantee if it doesn't work, or I'm gonna pay you 2K, or work with you for free, or whatnot. Everybody's doing the same thing, but in reality, what's going on is that you don't just need more leads. You don't just need just this one system, or I don't know, this one type of ads that's working, because ultimately, if you're getting more leads, you're just going to probably just stay stuck in the same position, because there's different levels as you have more leads, and different levels of business, mainly when you are scaling. And I'll dive more deep into what that looks like. But a lot of these people are preaching this no-brainer offer, but mainly they're also preaching this quick fix, right? So first, just to understand, it's not just about the marketing. You don't just need more leads, you need more team building. You need to also focus on your product, but nobody's really talking about that. And if they are, they're not going in depth. The next thing is that a lot of these people are just promising this 90-day quick fix. It does not take 90 days for you to hit an XYZ goal and then your problems are all solved. It takes a lot more than that. And I believe, honestly, more people should actually talk about that a business actually does not take 90 days to hit a goal. Rather, it takes years to really build a solid business with a healthy profit margin, with sustainable team members of your business, and something, let's say in the future, that you want to sell, that everything is done correctly. Or if you want to step out of the business or maintain this business, everything's running like a well-oiled machine, right? And again, guys, I mean, a lot of times what I end up seeing is that somebody has done this one thing once, and now they're saying, like, now they have an agency, now they probably did this for 3 months, and now everybody's like, man, I read this book or I read this course. Now I'm going to be the one doing it. Just the other day, honestly, this one person that I know of a friend, says, oh, I have an agency. I was like, oh, what do you do? And he was like, I forgot what he helps. I think he helps recruiters get more leads or something into their business. And then I talked to my friend who directly knew that person, and he literally just randomly knew somebody else that he created some sort of deal structure to help him. And that guy hasn't done any business things in the past. He's literally in another industry, not anything with business. And now he has an agency. And I'm like, this doesn't add up. And whether that's true, like if there's a lot of people out there doing that, whether it's not, I'm just saying what I have seen. I really feel that people should be putting in the work more for years before they actually start trying to preach to other people what to do, which is mainly why I just wanted to show you that the past couple of years, I just kind of been mainly like a cave, just working and showing some results here that I want to show you, and mainly the process of what works as well from what I've seen and from my experience, right? So again, like I'm saying, guys, everything I want to share is mainly just on my experience, and I want to let you know that I'm going to go really in depth in this, and these are the main problems from what I've seen in the industry in the past couple of years, and it's only growing rapidly with the patience, with the perspective, with the credibility, or whatever, right? And so the solution, what I believe is, again, I'm going to always stress on this, growing a real business takes time. It takes building blocks. It takes different levels. It takes different scales. It takes people. It takes learning how to understand people. It really takes understanding different perspectives of where you need to be at and what direction you need to head to, what you need to fix and why. Right. So I believe, again, if you're in a position where you're 30, 50K, even close to 100K, and you want to pass that 500K plus month mark, it's not just going to be another Instagram ad or a VSL. It's mainly going to be in this 3-step process from what I believe and what I've seen, right? Number one, validating your offer, right? So how can you make sure that you can go from 0 to 100K months consistently with the validation of your offer? I'll go more in depth of what that looks like. Number two, team building. How do you find the right team to make sure that you can scale along with your business while your team is growing along with you as well? And then 3, how do you leverage your great product to surpass 500K plus months? Now, the team building a great product, that's mainly, different ranges from what I've seen. So, doesn't always have to be, the 300K month and then you're going to 3. It could be a little bit more fluid. That's just from what I've seen that has worked, right? And again, this little picture here, that's just show you that, again, it takes time, takes the building blocks. All right, so let's dive in, right? So number one, how to actually validate your offer from anywhere from 50 to 100K months. The reason I put 50 to 100K months is because if you're at least at 50 for a couple months, you can maybe go on to step number 2, depending on where you're at and what your offer has as well. And simply what I have seen, I mean, there's so many different ads out these days. There's Facebook, there's TikTok, there's Instagram DM ads, there's VSLs, I don't know who's using webinars these days, but there's lots of different things, right? There's lead forms where you're doing outbound. There's, different, I've seen all these new things coming out, which is interesting. But what I've seen work best is simply just using your social media to nurture people through your organic content, and then making sure that you have conversations to book calls, and then validating your offer from there. Now, the reason this range of validating your offer is super important is because if you consistently have anywhere from 50 to 100K months, that shows that there's an audience out there, at least a smaller audience that you're validating right now, that is interested in buying your product and your program. And more likely than not, it is guaranteed that more likely than not that there's a bigger audience that's there to also there's more people out there who are willing to buy your product and or program as well. So you just need to have this validation process of at least 20 to 30, maybe even up to 50 sales per month consistently, depending on the price of your program, whether it's 2K to 5K plus, right? So I believe from what I've seen from different ads and different marketing, perspectives, that if you have a social media following, you just focus on growing that, right? Then that can be an easy way to start nurturing and then booking calls. So let's go on to step 1 as this 3-step process, right? First, it's growing your following, right? Now, it doesn't mean that you have to run IGDM ads or try to focus on, well, let me just try to go viral. I mean, you can go that route, but the easiest thing of what I found working right now with Instagram is simply using boosted posts. And that's simply where you take a post, whether it's a carousel, whether it's a reel, and you have some sort of call to action to follow you, and you boost that post, you know, you figure out the audience of who your audience is, and you run it at 10, 20, 30, 50, $100 a day, depending on your budget. And you have a certain amount of followers coming in. And I'll explain the next system, but this is more top of funnel. The second thing is boosted posts and or using shout outs, where you have a larger page that you talk to, you negotiate a price for them to post your content on their page for, you know, a certain budget, whether it's $20, $50 a post, $100, depending on their audience size, right? Obviously your audience has to be within their audience. And then that's going to attract followers to go to your page as well from the call to action using a carousel or a reel. And now you have this top of funnel process where you're consistently gaining a following on your Instagram page, right? So that's step one of the 3-step process to validate your offer. Are there people who are willing to see who you are and what you have to offer to follow your page? Step 2, super simple. I just screenshot this, I think last week, from one of the businesses, you know, I work with. What does it look like to generate conversations? Again, organic content, super easy to make sure that you're giving value, making sure you're sharing your story, right? And making sure that you're showing a little bit of results of, you know, the people you're already working with. And simply to generate conversations, all you have to do is on your stories or on your actual feed posts, give away free resources in exchange for conversations. And there are scripts for that, and or put some poll votes or questions or call to actions for them to actually work with you, or ask specific questions on those poll votes or questions that talk about their pains, their, you know, anything that has to do with their dreams or promises. And then you're going to provide the solution within the conversations to start booking 15-minute calls. And after you start generating these conversations, right, that is simply going to be done through an appointment setter. Now, you probably heard, you know, well, we're going to scale your thing with this IG shout out system and an appointment setter, or, you know, this is how, you know, our appointment setters have 6x our revenue, whatever that looks like, right? Like simply just hire somebody from an agency that you probably know of, or you make sure that you post on Facebook groups and communities and referrals to find an appointment setter. And I'll talk about that in step 2, right? But how you can leverage an appointment setter to create those conversations, right? Not create the conversation, but actually have those conversations for you to start booking calls on your calendar. And this point in time, as the owner, you're probably going to be the person who's actually taking those calls, right? So simple 3-step process. You want to make sure that you have a validated offer from anywhere from 50 to 100K months for at least a couple months, through growing your following, through generating conversations, through free resource giveaways, questions, call to actions, and then having appointments set to make sure that they're in that system to start booking calls for you. And you're going to start closing those calls. And maybe you might, maybe you might have a closer at this point. But the main essence is there's an audience that you're generating some programs from, that your business actually generating anywhere from 50 to 100K months, because there's an audience out there. All right. So that's step number 1. Let's go on to step number 2. All right. How do you actually scale past 100K plus months building a 7-figure team, right? So mainly the essence here is you're solely focused on building a team, and a highly motivated, effective team that has the right alignment and the right culture that you want in your business on a daily basis. And this is typically done just through 2 steps, right? The first step, right? You want to make sure that you have the right hiring process for your team. And all that means is you want to make sure that you're hiring the right people for your team. Now, I've seen this happen lots of times, where you end up growing with this step 1, and you're like, man, I'm going to step out of the business and hire more appointment setters and or another closer or 2. And they're going to replace the calls and the conversations and all that stuff as well. But they don't hire the right people, right? And then they're in this continuous cycle of like, why in the hell am I still in this hamster wheel, right? So what do you have to do in regards to hiring the right people within this macro step, and how do you go into the micro? You want to have a strict interview process where you're looking for the right people based on character traits, how responsive they are to your messages. I also like making sure that they follow a detailed instruction on the first call, on the second call, and they actually follow that to a T, because if they don't, it shows me attention to detail and I disqualify that person, right? Also, again, you want to also, things like their skill, their hunger, all that good stuff as well. But it's not just one interview. I like having a 3-step process interview where the first is really understanding who they are, what they're looking for. So you're really looking at the character traits. Again, you're kind of on your toes here. You want to almost think of how is this person not qualified, but they're going to prove to you that they are. The second, strictly having a mock call, so more of a skills test. The third, total alignment, having an onboarding process, right? So along with that process, you also want to make sure that you're not just hiring the right people, but you also are hiring the right people at the right time, right? And all that means is there's many times in businesses where people end up hiring people at the wrong time. And all that means is you'll have owners, and I've seen this countless times, they get super excited where, leads are going great for a couple days or a week. And they're like, man, we got to hire 3 appointment setters and 2 closers because we're going to scale this to the moon. But what ends up happening is if things are consistent for at least a period of time, and I like saying at least 2 to 4 weeks, if not longer, then you shouldn't be actually looking to hire, because what ends up happening in this process is if you overhire people for a specific department, let's say marketing or let's say sales specifically, people are going to leave because they don't have as many calls, they don't have as many conversations, they can't make the money that they want to make within what you promised them. So it is always important that when you're hiring for people at the right time, you're doing this in a specific instance where I like making sure that people are saturated, as I like to say it, for at least 2 to 4 weeks. Let me give you a real example, right? So let's say you have 1 setter and 1 closer, but what ends up happening is that 1 setter just has too many conversations within step 1. They have too many calls, they're being overbooked. Well, it's probably now not too quickly for you to actually make sure that you bring in a setter right away. That's going to be your gut instinct, but you want to wait at least 2 to 4 weeks. It's okay. You can hold those leads back for right now. You want to make sure that you have a system that's working and it's consistent, and then you slowly introduce somebody coming in, and then it makes sure that it's nice and fluid. Everybody's expecting what they should expect within the business, right? So that's step 1. Again, I got a little deep there. Step 2, the macro step within step 2 in general, right, is now that you brought people in, not only in your business, but at the right time, and you know how to do that, you also want to make sure that you're also training your team correctly. Now, this is a secret where lots of other owners also, they get stuck. They get into this hamster wheel because they don't know how to actually train people or keep them highly motivated on a daily basis. They know how to bring people in, right? Because they end up finding these people from referrals or from other agencies or communities or Facebook groups, but they don't know how to keep these people. And here's the reason why, right? There needs to be an infrastructure within your business. And that infrastructure has to deal with everything of setting KPIs and always having end of day reports, along with having daily meetings with your team. If you have those 3, you're solid. So let's dive into this, right? Setting KPIs. Every setter and or closer, anybody in any department, whether they're a coach, whether they're in marketing, they need to be told, or not told, but they need to know what to do on a daily basis. And all that means is they need to know the numbers that they should be hitting, or else they're going to be lost. But most times what ends up happening are most businesses are lost because they're in a position where they don't really know the numbers that they should hit. And they should also have end of day reports, so you know what's going on a daily basis, so you can overview what's going right and what's going wrong. All right, so let me dive in regards to this process here, right? So let's dive into one of these end of day reports for one of the setters of a business. You see, as you'll see here, again, I blocked off the name, right? You'll see that there's 8 calendars sent. Out of those, 5 calls were booked. There's 230 combos. Set 4 out of 6 calls, and main reasons because there was probably 2 no-shows, right? So pretty good stuff. Closed the call today from the closer. Lead quality 3.5, pretty decent. Active, and then all this other stuff of how many conversations, follow-up, so on and so forth. And then put a little note, right? Great Tuesday, lots of conversations, got more DQs than usual, but we're going to keep going. This was, I believe, last Tuesday from when I took that screenshot, right? And then let's go on to the closer, right? In a team closer chat, all of this is typically done through Slack, right? Again, you want to have an infrastructure with your team, right? So you'll see that lots of these, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 closes, I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4, I can't count. 5, 6, 7 closes, right? So 7 closes for your business from one closer. I mean, what would that do for your business, right? That would be pretty fucking awesome, right? So this was again, I believe, like last Friday, right? And so you'll see that everything here is in sync, right? The closer knows what's going on with the setter knows what's going on with the closer, right? And I just gave like a little glance of, what an EOD report actually looks like. Another thing that you want to do is you also want to make sure that when you're setting these KPIs and you have the end of day reports, right? You also have daily meetings. And these are super important because when you have these daily meetings on a Monday through Friday basis, you want to make sure that you have the right culture. You're overviewing the reports, you're overviewing projections that you have for them, the KPIs. You understand what's going right with the business, what's going wrong with the business, how can you help, how they can help you. And you all are working as a team. So everybody knows that they should be in sync on a daily basis and not kind of just scrambling around, just doing their own thing and then wondering why things aren't really being done or met to your expectations, right? Another thing outside of the daily meetings that I didn't mention is that it's always important to also have one-on-one meetings because you also want to understand what's going on with that person's life. Are they motivated? And here's the secret here. You want to make sure that their goals, not your goals, their goals fit the business goals, not the other way around, because that is full alignment for them to stay with you long term so they don't just end up leaving every month or two or even every couple weeks like I've seen in other businesses. And then they wonder why they can never scale. Right. Along with that, with the daily meetings, you want to have things like call reviews, trainings, role plays, all these different things, mock calls. So then everybody, just like every other team, has different practice drills, they're doing on a daily basis. You also have your team accountable within that process. Right. So let's back up here. Right. So when it comes to step 2 or step 1 per se, right, you want to make sure you first have a validated offer through this process, this 3-step process. Then when you go on to step number 2, you're going to be mainly focused on building a 7-figure team with setters and closers, with your coaches, with your marketing department. And with that, you want to learn how to hire the right people at the right time. And you want to learn how to train your team effectively so you have the right culture, the right motivation, the right alignment, so you can have that infrastructure to scale to that next level. Now, before I dive into step number 3, I do want to let you know, right, that a lot of people who get out of this perspective, right, they end up going here, right, and they stay here for years. I've seen another business that was stuck around that 100 to 150K month, literally for 3 years, because they couldn't really keep their team accountable. Yes, that's one reason, but mainly you want to end up learning how to leverage your product to actually scale past 200, 300 to 500K plus months. And this is exactly how you do this. All right. So if we're going to go to step number 3 from step number 2, the main thing that you want to do is you want to have a badass product that creates badass results. And the way you do that before diving into that is the benchmark before diving into this is you must keep your sales team tight, right? So you want to make sure that for at least a couple months, you have your team hitting the KPIs and if not exceeding those KPIs. And you want to make sure that there's great culture within your team. If there's not, they're out. Because one bad apple can create lots of bad apples. I've seen that happen over and over and over again, right? So you want to have them exceeding KPIs, and you want to also make sure that they have the right culture. And that's going to help them, or you per se, to actually make sure that you can focus on these 2 steps. Now, just to let you know, maybe you want to slow this down or pause because this is going to get a little bit more complex, but this is going to be the secret for you to actually scale to the next level if you're stuck around that 1 to 300K month mark. And it has to do everything about product and nothing about leads. Everything about product, nothing about leads, because after a certain point, you don't want to just focus on leads. Now, before I dive into this, you probably heard this before. The easiest customers to sell are the ones they already sold to. But here's the reality to it. Nobody here, or at least nobody that I know of, are actually talking about what that actually looks like. A lot of people are saying it. Actually, a few people are. But nobody's actually talking about the nitty gritty and granular things of how to actually do it. So let me dive in on what this looks like. The first thing that you want to do, again, this is a 2-step process. This right here is the benchmark. The first thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that you have data with your clients. And all data means is you want to make sure that you have a customer journey within your program, not the upsell, but the actual program that you have. The easiest way to get data from your program or from your clients is to make sure that you install this first bad boy here, activation points, right? So let me give you an example. Again, take notes, slow this down, pause it if you need to, because it's going to get a little bit more complex than usual, right? Step 1 and 2, pretty straightforward, right? You want to make sure that you validate your offer with this funnel. You want to make sure that, you keep your team tight. Step 3, let's dive into product. All right. So let's say you have a 16-week program. Let's say it's fitness, right? So what you want to do, and again, this is just an example, so relate it to your program and your offer, right? What you want to do is you want to make sure that within that 16-week program, you have, let's say, 4 activation points, right? And an activation point is simply where that client has to get to. And let's say your offer is, again, example, right? They're losing 20 pounds in 16 weeks. Well, what I would say is, let's include those 4 activation points. Let's make it every single month, right? So month 1 is activation point 1, month 2 is activation 2, so on and so forth, right? 3 and 4, month 3, month 4. And let's say if it's 20 pounds that they want to lose, then they're going to lose 5 pounds every single month for every single activation point, right? Makes sense. 5 times 4 equals 20, 4 months. Now, within that activation point that you are installing inside of your program, whether it's 12 weeks, 16 weeks, whether it's 6 months, whether it's 1 month, right? You want to make sure that in activation point 1, with this example, 16 weeks, in activation point 1, that there's a journey on how to lose those first 5 pounds. Maybe it's installing these type of habits. They're going to the grocery stores. They have a meal plan. Maybe it's the team messaging them on a daily basis because they need that. Boom, they hit activation point 1 because of these specific things that you're now installing to actually hit that first activation point. Now you want to install a different activation point for point 2. How did they lose the extra 5 pounds? Well, now it's going to the gym a little bit more. Now it's probably doing a little bit of cardio, start off with walks, so on and so forth. How do you get your team or you to actually do that? Boom, to get the results. And then you're going to do the same thing for activation point 3, activation point 4. So now you have actual data on what you need to do for every single activation point, so you know that every client can get the result of what you have to offer, in this case, losing 20 pounds, right? And once you have that data of the exact steps on how to hit those goals, it is going to tremendously increase the results of your clients and the program that you have to offer. And you're going to be able to have you or your head coach, depending on whatever makes sense at that point, to monitor the data of what your coaches have to do to make sure they have to reach those goals for your clients so they get the results for the program. I almost got lost there with my verbiage, right? And that's an easy way for step 1 to understand, how do I get my clients to get better results within my program? And it's because I have these activation points and I can monitor this data with my coaches. So if somebody is not getting a result on one of the activation points, why is that happening? And how can I improve this? This process takes a couple months, right? And just to get data, but it's very important to understand what that looks like. All right. The end goal of making sure that you can scale past 500K months with your product that gives badass results is mainly because your end goal is to make sure that you're not just having this cycle of all these leads coming on the front end and then they just leave, but rather they stay with you as long as possible by increasing your LTV. LTV, lifetime value, right? So every single client comes in, I want to make sure that I get the most out of that person to stay with me, so I don't have to always focus on the marketing end and always just get lost of somebody coming in, somebody leaving, right? And so ultimately the goal is, once you have this system installed, you're going to be also increasing your LTV, because if somebody gets results within this 16-week program and they have a great experience, they exceeded the results that they wanted to, chances are when you install your higher tier program or your upsell program, whether they pay a higher price or whether they end up staying for a longer period of time, let's say in this specific example for 6 to 12 months to continue within the program, chances are they're probably going to want to buy that because they got results because of the activation points. Chances are they are going to refer people when you install a referral program inside of your offer, which you honestly, obviously should, but chances are whatever referral program you're using, when you install that, they obviously are going to want to refer to other people because they got great results. And chances are your refunds are also going to also decrease almost to zero because you installed these activation points and gotten great results. Now, this is super fun because when you're using this process, right, you don't have to focus. Again, I'll say this again, third time saying this. You don't have to focus on the front end. You can focus on the client coming in and staying with you longer. Now, let's break it down into some numbers, right? Let's take a deep breath because that was a lot to digest, right? Again, you can pause, take some notes, come back to it, maybe play me on 0.5x, but let's go into some real life example, right? So let's say you have a program that is 5K, and after your marketing spend, paying the team, you're at 50% margins. That means for every $2,500, you make 5K, right? So you have 50% margins. In order to increase your LTV by focusing on these activation points, right? Let's say you increase your LTV from 5K to 10K because Sally got great results after the 16 weeks. And Sally now wants to buy another program for 12 months at 5K, right? And now Sally has paid 10K overall for your actual program, meaning you essentially have increased your margins to 75% because you paid 2.5K to get Sally to pay 10K. 2.5K is 25% of 10K, making your profit margins essentially 75%. Yes, you have to still probably pay the team or other things like that, but you're not spending more marketing dollars to make sure that you have to bring another person in, which honestly is a process where most people end up staying stuck here, right? This is a really good place to be, but if you want to get here, you have to make sure that you have the right activation points, the right LTV, so you can actually increase your profit margins and actually scale as well. All right. So let's just take a real life example, right? Within this 3-step process, right? So again, step 1 is making sure you validate through this process, this funnel, I guess you could call. Step 2 is how to actually scale past 100K months by having a 7-figure team and the granular process of what you need to do for that by hiring and training. And step 3, again, a little bit more complex, but how to use your product to leverage to get more sales without having to spend more on marketing dollars. And then how that 3-step process has helped Justin as a real life example. So here's the deal. You don't need hundreds of thousands of followers. You just need a system that works, right? So he has only around 25K followers. He's doing around 150K plus months, just 25K followers. He has, I believe, 3 setters. He's installing another closer, but we're mainly focused on step 3 now, right? But just last year, right, he was around 10K followers. And let me just give you a real life example here. Just last year, right, if we saw from what I believe, he's hitting 180 the past month, but just last year, let's go to, and bear with me here, June 1st, 2022, June 30th, 2022. Enter, right? He was at 30K months, right? This is real data. This is, a real business doing 30K months. Pretty decent. Not bad, but obviously could be better. Again, it takes time. It's not going to be a 90-day quick fix. And let's just change 2022 to obviously 2023 and see what happens, right? And you guys obviously have seen it, but it's good to show it again, right? 30K to 180K in just about 12 months. Again, he used this 3-step process. The first thing we had to do was validate his offer, right? To make sure how are we using this funnel, how are we making sure we get more followers, how do we use them in the system to have conversations, appointment setters, and then we're scaling him past 100K months. And now we're literally in this process. Literally, let's see, today's the 5th of July. A couple days ago, literally, we had a call with their head coach, and we're getting data on these activation points with this process. And we have the exact numbers and KPIs of what we should be looking at this to make sure that we can use a product to scale past 500K, right? Because he's basically at 200K right now, right? So Justin is a real life example of how this has worked over the past 12 months, not 30 or 90 days, all right? Again, it's a patient process. It's a building process, but it works and it's a scaling process, right? So again, I already just said it. We did implement this 3-step process. We're focused on step 3. Now, here's the reality of how this has helped Justin, right? The real scenario is Justin actually had more freedom in his life. And what I mean by that is at a certain point, yes, Justin just did not only want to quit his job, which he did once we started already, hitting around 50K months, but Justin doesn't have to worry about money ever again with his business, right? I mean, like at the margins he's hitting around, let's say 180. He's bringing in probably around like 100K a month in cash to his bank, his business bank, and for him to take whatever he wants out of it. I mean, he's making 100K a month, right? So freedom and money, I guess money is not really an issue for him at all because he can do what he wants when he wants, and the day-to-day expenses aren't an issue. And he has freedom that he honestly never thought that he would ever have, because when I first talked to him, he was just thinking 50K was the moon. Now he's like, let's add another 0 to the 50. That's really what I want at least. And then we're probably going to add, what does it look like to hit $1 million a month business, right? So obviously he has more freedom than ever. He has a business of his dreams. And all that means is that he's been focusing on this for the past 10 years, guys, 10 years. If you're watching this, 2023, 2013, right? Imagine where you were at in 2013, right? He was starting his business selling, his program for $200, right? And it's crazy because now, it's definitely a higher ticket offer now, right? But he's actually living what he wants to do, right? He knew that this was something that he really wanted to grow. He tried for 8 or 9 years, didn't work. We worked together. He's obviously in this position where now we're scaling to probably 250K by the end of the year, scaling past 4 to 500K, probably 6 to 12 months after that. Again, it takes time. It's not a 90-day quick fix, right? So he definitely has the business of his dreams. He wakes up. He loves what he's doing. He loves his team. He loves the culture. But mainly, guys, right? It's not just about the money. Yes, his dreams are being met, but mainly the offer that he has, right? He's making an impact in the industry he's in right now. People are starting to know, who is this guy who's giving great as results to the people that he works with? Well, it first made an impact to him. And now the industry that he's in is making a hell of an impact because he knows that he's getting heard. And he knows that, man, this is fucking crazy, right? Like, I'm actually being heard in this industry, which I never thought I would be. And now I'm in a position where I can wake up. I can not only have freedom, I can not only have my dreams being built on a daily basis. And I am in my dream that I always wanted to do because I worked my ass off for 8 or 9 years, but I am making an impact on a daily basis, right? And I know because everybody's getting great results. Everybody's being heard of what I'm doing inside the industry. And I know this is total alignment. And that's what it's really about, guys. Because after you make a certain amount of money, right? Like, money's not going to be the main thing that drives you. It's going to be more of what you do every day, how it makes an impact, and the freedom that you have as well. All right. So here's a real question. Here's a real question, right? How the hell is this offer different from every other offer out there, right? Well, put some brakes on that. The first thing I do want to say is that that's for you to decide. Again, like I said in the beginning, right? I'm only here to share. I'm not here to convince, right? I'm only here to share what I've seen has worked from my experience. I know I am a student of learning as well. I'm not here to convince you. I'm just here to show you what I have learned, how this has worked for different businesses that I've worked with. And hey, maybe this could help you too. Maybe you could learn from it. Maybe not. Totally fine, right? That's for you to decide. I'm in no way trying to convince. I'm only here to make sure that you can learn something from here, and that's for you to decide, right? But here's the real deal, right? Everything that I am sharing, right, is just everything that I have learned and experiences, like I said before. And again, I am a student of learning, right? But here's what I do know, right? Within this process, again, I shared some of the accounts. I'm not sharing all of them because some of them want to have some privacy, which is fine, right? But I have taken multiple businesses past 7 figures, past 100K, 200K, 300K, so on and so forth. And, right, I have seen the growth of businesses going to 700K per month. Plus, I have been to 8-figure masterminds. I've seen lots of stuff, guys, basically what I'm trying to say. And in a humble way, I'm just trying to let you know that I have done this. I have proven to show that this has worked for businesses because of the experience that I've gone through. and lots of failures, but now I have it wrapped up in a way that I know it's lots of wins that I can share, right? So that is what I do know. Now, if one of you are in a position and understand that a business actually takes time, right? So that's one thing I want you all to know is that I'm in no way to talk that things actually take 30 days, 60 days, or 90 days. Rather, you have to understand that if you're in a position that, man, like maybe I do want to know a little bit more about what this person does, right? Well, here's the deal. I'm never going to promise you something that's going to take 60 or 9 days because I honestly think that's BS. Like, let's throw that out the window. You have to understand firsthand, right, that a business does take time, so it requires patience. It's not 6 or 9 days, rather, it's at least a year or two. And it's something that is going to take time, but it is with certainty going to get to that level that you want to scale to, right? You have these big goals and not just trying to hit 30, 40, 50K months. You're trying to hit 300, 400, 500K plus months. That's going to take time. Let's get the Legos out. Let's actually start building, right? So you must have the perspective, right, that it does take time and there needs to be patience. Another thing as well is if you're in a position and you're like, man, maybe this thing is something that I want to know a little bit more about, right? You must be committed, right? I don't deal with owners, entrepreneurs like that are kind of just, man, like, I don't know if I should do, like, I don't have the time for this, or like, I don't know if I want to do this or down it. Like, we just got to make sure that, you're in a position, you want to do this. There's no BS. Like, what we say, what needs to be done, like if you have the blueprint, boom, gets done, right? None of this like, oh, I don't know, like what's going on, like I don't know if I want to do this. It's like, no, you got to be committed that you're playing in the long-term game, but you're actually inside the game. You're committed to this process and you want to do this and you see the longevity of this rather than just, man, this might be something I just do for a couple months, or I don't know if I really want to do this, maybe I want to do something else. If you're in a position and you want to do this, there has to be no BS, right? Or at least you want to know a little bit more, right? Another thing too is, guys, very transparently, right? It has to make sense for both of us. I'm not going to be the coach who's going to say, hey, it's 5K. We're going to work for 90 days. I'm going to write you a check, or I'll work with you for free, right? What's another one? Or it's a full refund if you don't hit XYZ results. Like, no, I'm here for the longevity. I'm here for the no BS. I want to make sure that we both understand and it makes sense for both of us that we can get to the goals that we want to go to. And transparently, all that means is that I come in as more of a growth partner position, right? So I am not in a way where it's just a short-term game, or, we're not committed to each other or anything in regards to that, in regards to a deal that we're working with. But mainly, it's something that if it doesn't make sense on your end, or you have a slight doubt, we can always work something out to what makes sense for both of us. Because here's the reality: I turn down more people that actually apply to work or try or just have questions about working than people who actually get accepted to actually make sure that it does work, right? So I kind of want to make that more of a laying off ease for you, that this is something that has to make sense for both of us, because if it doesn't, it's just not going to work long term, right? So just, that's the easiest way that I could put it, right? But let's say you're in a position, right, and you kind of think, you're like, man, this Dennis guy knows what he's talking about, right? Like, I've seen just what he shared about all this process and it does make sense. Let's say if you're in a position, you're like, I know I'm patient. I know I'm not just going to expect this for 60 or 90 days. I can lengthen my expectations. And I know that this process can take a year or 2 years, and I'm in it for the long-term game. I'm not in it for the 30 or 60 day or 90-day quick fix. Right. And you're in a position, you're like, man, I am committed. I do want to do this. Like, I am going all in. I'm not going to BS. Like, this is what I want to do, and I'll put everything I got into it. If you tell me to do something, I'll do it. Right. And you're like, yeah, I understand that. Like, it has to make sense for both of us. It has to make sense for, me pretending to be you and also Dennis, right? Like that's how things work if, I truly want to scale to the next level. Again, if you're in those 3 to 4 positions and all those different things, right? And you're like, this is starting to make sense a little, right? All you simply can do, right, is, it sounds like you, right? You can simply just message me 500K on Instagram, right, at Dennis Eza, right? And we can just have a simple chat. We can see if it makes sense, right? Again, those are the requirements for it to make sense. And if it does, great. You'll see yourself scaling to that next level. If not, totally fine. No harm done, right? But mainly what I do want to share is hopefully this has been helpful. That is my main intention of this video, that you can use this, you can implement it, and you can actually start using this stuff to actually scale to the next level as well. Now, if you had any other questions, feel free to comment here below, right? If you want any more videos on specific topics or anything that you want me to dive into, comment here below. And if you're interested and you're like, hey man, I just want to chat and see what this looks like, again, simply DM me 500K. Dancer has we can set up a time to chat, so on and so forth. But again, my main intention is hopefully this has helped you out. See you guys in the next video.